Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Eyes on Ice. Why ICE shouldn't be reformed, only abolished. And I want to get us started by welcoming everyone who is already joining us via Zoom. If you are joining us uh, on our stream live, feel free to share, tag community members, folks that you want to invite into the space. My name is Cynthia Garcia. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and we're going to have the opportunity shortly to share space with a lot of amazing community leaders. And I want to get the introductions going and everything to Chloe so that we can get started. Again, if you're joining us, make sure you share, drop your name, pronouns, where you're joining us from, and we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, feel free to text Undeniable to 877-877. We're going to be getting started in just a couple of minutes.
Vamos a comenzar en unos minutos. Por lo mientras, si quiere compartir su nombre en el chat, si está con nosotros en el Zoom, también pueden mandar un texto con Undeniable al 877-877 para recibir actualizaciones sobre la campaña. Vamos a comenzar en unos minutos nomás. Y esto es el programa de por qué ICE se tiene que abolir y no se puede reformar. Gracias. Entonces, hoy nuestra intérprete Sandra proveerá interpretación simultánea entre el inglés y el español para todos los que están con nosotros en Zoom. Y podrá acceder a interpretación después de estas instrucciones. So today our interpreter Sandra will be providing simultaneous English-Spanish interpretation for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, and you'll be able to access interpretation after these instructions. Si está usando una computadora, haz clic en el icono de globo al pie de su pantalla con la palabra interpretación. Selecciona el canal de su lenguaje preferido, inglés o español. If you're using a computer, click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen with the word interpretation. Select the channel with the language of your choice, English or Spanish. Para teléfono inteligente o tableta, haz clic en los 3 puntos etiquetados más para hacer su selección. For smartphone or tablet, click on the 3 dots labeled More to make your selection. No se olvide escoger su canal de lenguaje preferido. Si tiene cualquier problema escuchándonos a nosotros o con la tecnología, por favor envíe un mensaje al chat. Gracias por su compromiso en crear un espacio multilingüe. Don't forget to click on your language of choice. If you have any problems hearing us or with the technology, please send a message in the chat. Thank you for your commitment to creating a multilingual space. So I'm going to just take a quick pause here to make sure that interpretation is working. Voy a tomar una pausa aquí para asegurar de que esté funcionando la interpretación. And then we're going to give some context about what's been going on with the Eyes on ICE campaign. Y luego vamos a dar un poquito de contexto sobre la campaña de la migra en la mira. So are we good to go with interpretation? Okay, sounds like interpretation is working. Está funcionando la interpretación. So we're here today, like Cynthia mentioned, as part of the Eyes on ICE Truth and Accountability Forums, because we know that President Biden actually has the power to overhaul and dismantle programs that have been extremely harmful to our communities, programs that have been part of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and DHS since its creation, right? We know that Joe Biden called the Obama era's 3 million deportations a mistake when he was on the campaign trail, but unfortunately, over 127,000 people were deported or expelled just 60 days into the Biden presidency. This is unacceptable, and we know that President Biden has the power to make this stop. We know that he doesn't need to wait on anyone in Congress. He doesn't need to wait for anyone in the Senate in order to put an end to the deportations, in order to close down detention facilities, in order to end local police-ICE collaboration programs, and to allow people who are seeking asylum to enter the country at the border instead of using the Trump-era Title 42 policy. So that's why we decided to launch the Eyes on ICE tactic as part of the We Are Home campaign. We're collaborating with dozens of local immigrant rights organizations across the country, and this is an effort that's being anchored by Mi Gente. At this moment, the Department of Homeland Security is undertaking a review of policies that were put into place over the last 4 years. But as a movement, we're really clear on what accountability means, and people have been calling for the same thing for even before the Trump administration. So again, that's why we're putting together these truth and accountability forums across the country. We're inviting everyone who wants to organize a forum to just register a forum on our sign-up page up until the end of the 100-day period. And we have invited Secretary Mayorkas to the final Truth and Accountability Forum on May 3rd. So we're still waiting to hear back to see if he'll show up, but he is invited to hear directly from the community members who have been harmed by his programs and the decisions that he continues to make as Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. So we have a really amazing program today. Cynthia, I'm going to kick it back to you. But before we do that, I just want to remind people that this session is being recorded. So if you're on Zoom, you can go off camera if you're more comfortable, because we are planning on submitting testimonies to the Biden administration as part of the effort to pressure and stop the deportations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. And thank you, everyone that is joining us tonight. I want to express my gratitude for everybody on the Zoom and also everybody who's joining us on the stream live. The question to share and also ensure that you are able to engage, right? We are looking at the comments and we're going to be responding in the best ways we can to ensure that you feel just as engaged as everybody else on the back end. What I wanted to start us off with is that, one, I'm really excited. I'm excited to have the opportunity to share space with a powerful group of leaders and organizers in our community. Because what we know over the last 4 years, our communities have been under attack on every front, on the federal level and on the local level. And many of those fights here at United We Dream, we have been able to take on through the partnerships of our affiliates who are expanded from coast to coast. I think it's important that tonight we are joined by key partners in the movement that defend immigrant communities, that build power to deliver permanent protection for our people. So I want to start this conversation by inviting each of our guests to share their names, their pronouns, and briefly the work of the organization and the work that they do in their localities. So I'm going to pass it first to our friend Jose, who is going to start us off with Dream Action Oklahoma. And I want to bring Jose to the screen to share, again, the amazing work that you're doing here in Oklahoma.
Hi, yeah. So my name's Jose Rubio. And my pronouns are he, him, his. And I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Dream Action Oklahoma. It's an immigrant rights organization here in Oklahoma, and it's also the only immigrant youth and queer-led organization in the whole state. So I started organizing for immigrant rights when I was in high school, and I started mainly because I saw all these struggles, right, that my parents especially had to go through when they came to the U.S. from Mexico, but also because I met a lot of amazing leaders in the movement. I mean, there's been amazing leaders in the movement for so long now, and thanks to their leadership, I was inspired to join the movement. That's the main reason why I started. But I came from Mexico when I was 3 years old. And now I'm just here to expose the unjust conditions that ICE and local law enforcement have brought onto our communities.
Thank you, Jose. Such a pleasure to have you. And I know that we're going to be joined briefly by another community leader from Oklahoma. So I will come back to Jackie, and I want to pass it on to, I shared that we have coast to coast. So I want to pass it to our team, LUCHA, from Arizona, to also introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Tamilia Valenzuela, and I'm the Immigration Program Coordinator here at LUCHA. And one of the things that we do here is we really engage and educate our community. We can only really have people get into the fight when they really understand what is going on, when they understand how these systems are harmful in our communities. When we empower our people and when we educate them, you can't take that away, and it gives them their power back, and it really shows them the ways that they can lead. And so that's what we're working on here in Arizona. And today we are joined by one of our powerful Poderosa Mujeres here in Arizona, Isel. And so I'm going to shoot it off to her.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. Happy Wednesday as well. But hi, I'm Itzel, pronoun she, her, hers. I'm a 17-year-old and a dreamer as well, and also a LUCHA member. And I am a huge advocate for my fellow dreamers community because I firsthand have experienced ICE and how negatively it affects our communities. And I'm very proud to be here and very excited to share my story and just show how bad ICE and we must abolish it.
Thank you so much. And I know that Lucha played a critical role in changing the political landscape, and that we are seeing, right? The reason why we have new administration is also on the power of immigrant and indigenous people in the state of Arizona. So I want to give a huge shout out for the amazing work that Lucha has done, and want to reground folks who are joining us, that you are coming on here sharing your power, your lessons learned, and I think it's critical as part of our work. And so I know that we are moving through Zoom and we're having folks join us. There's a little bit of the Zoom, if you hear echo or something in between, we're definitely ensuring that we're taking care of that. In the meantime, I'm also seeing the messages that y'all are putting around abolishing ICE and why we need to get rid of this agency that has harmed our communities for decades since the beginning of this agency. And so before I move us along with the rest of our folks who are joining us, I want to just invite us to do a moment of reflection and share on the chat or on the live stream. Why are you joining us today? And I'm going to give a couple of seconds for folks to respond so we're able to see that on the spotlight. What brings you to this space? And I know that we're waiting. We're going to hear from Karina from Arizona as well. And we're going to hear from Jackie coming up. But I want to hear from y'all. What brings you to this space today? And so I see Deborah. It's definitely ICE needs to be abolished. I see the trauma and the pain that this agency as a whole has brought up. And I want to make sure that as we invite other folks, that we're grounded in our power, that we're grounded in the understanding that our people have the solutions, that our people should be leading the conversations of what we need: community resources, we need liberation, and we need community outside of detention centers, outside of this agency. And so to kick us off with the second part of our conversation, before we get there, I want to invite Karina to join us. Hopefully her tech stuff is taken care of. And I see your face, friend. I want you to introduce yourself, share a little bit of the work that ADAC has done in Arizona, and then we'll kick it off.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Karina Ruiz with the Arizona Dreamer Coalition, she, her, ella. And I am, beyond honored to be in this space. I have talked to community members about their experiences in these detention centers, which I believe they're the concentration camps of our time. And part of the work that we do is deportation defense, and that's why we said let's join this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Karina. Appreciate you. And I'm seeing comments again, folks who are joining us on the Zoom, on the stream. Let us know what brings you to this space. To kick off our conversation tonight, I want to offer a grounding, like I said, of the people directly impacted are the closest to the solution. And we must center their lived experience to share a vision of the immigration that is people-centered, that provides our people the freedom to move, to migrate without being criminalized or harmed in the process. We also want to acknowledge that right now, we are seeing that Democrats and Republicans alike are trying to say that what we've experienced over the last 4 years was an anomaly, and that it was only led by Trump and his allies. We are seeing Republicans weaponize what's happening at the border. And they're weaponizing the pain and the distress of our communities. We know that in this moment, Republicans want to tie any protection to more border funding. And we have to say no. The truth is that these agencies have existed way before Trump, and that they have always been rooted in inflicting harm against our communities and communities of color. And that every community will continue to be terrorized under agencies like ICE and CBP. So it is imperative that we abolish ICE and defund CBP and continue to guide our work on an immigration ecosystem that truly believes that people can move and that they have the freedom and the right to move across borders and across more than just what we consider the continent of the US. And so I want to invite a couple of the folks who may have not shared yet to start us off on what are some of the ways in which they have seen ICE operate in their community. What are some of the impact that it has had on their local communities? And also, what are some campaigns, right, that they have been working on or they're currently leading so that we're able to know how we can support to fight back against this agency? And so to start us off, I want to invite, I'm going to invite Jackie, if Jackie is ready to start off. Hi, Jackie. We need you to unmute. There you go.
I got it. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie. Sorry, I'm in my work clothes. I just got off of work. But thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everybody joining. We are so happy to have you here, and to really get you guys involved in, getting us all, together in a coalition. We're obviously all fighting the same fight. So let's get together and, start to put in the work to really achieve these goals of, abolishing ICE, ending ICE contracts and things like that. So I'm 24. My name is Jackie. I work with DAOK, Dream Action Oklahoma. I'm the deputy director for our Tulsa team, and I'm also the civic engagement coordinator for Dream Action Oklahoma. So I live here in Tulsa. I've lived here in Tulsa pretty much my whole life since pre-K age. And at a pretty early age, I kind of learned what it meant for us to come from a mixed status family. My parents don't have papers. They came here at pretty much at teenage age. And so I slowly, before ICE came into our town and had contracts in our town, I knew about ICE. I knew that what they were. I knew what kind of organization they were. Even at a young age, that like, oh, these people are the bad people and they're going to take my parents away. Why? Simply because of, a legal status or something like that. So, as I went on, growing up, I kind of saw the ICE process and what it meant for it to really traumatize and hurt our families. I've had quite a few family members go through the deportation process, and just to have to watch the trauma that they go through on their own, not even how it affects their family, it's detrimental. Deportation is such a inhumane process that our community is subjugated to. and for, nothing other than racism and fear mongering and, just a lack of understanding of who our community is, and the lack of wanting to know who our community is. So we have a 287G contract here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which basically allows ICE basically allows our local law enforcement officers to act as ICE agents. So that's a quick way for our community to be put into that deportation pipeline process. So right now we are kind of working on we're working on a campaign to help end those contracts here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we've seen quite a bit of the community leave town as well. That contract 287G started here in Tulsa in 2007. And pretty quickly, we saw almost like the diminishing of our community. Our community didn't gather where they used to. There was just this fear that took over our community, and it's still pretty prevalent because we know ICE is here. We know what it means if you get pulled over without a license, or if you get stopped and your insurance is bad or expired, and you're so easily subjugated to be putting into this deportation pipeline. So that's a little bit about Tulsa. If there's any questions that you guys have, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. I know that the core of organizing is definitely our community leaders. So, no apology about doing the work of having to go to work and also being there for our communities, right? I think that as someone who is also an organizer in my locality, like I see how there is that enrichment of community. And so I thank you and I welcome you. And I also want to hear from our folks from ADAC. I know that Karina is going to share also like what are the campaigns that they're working on in Arizona. And we're actually going to hear testimony from one of our community leaders in Arizona, Christian. And so I want to pass it to Karina to kick us off and then make time also to hear from Christian.
Thank you, Cynthia. Yes, definitely. In Arizona, we have seen the collaboration between local authorities and ICE and how families have been separated and terrorized since SB 1070. And more recently, with COVID-19, our community members have been at risk. This is not something that we know as, this is something that we know as community members, that we have lived and experienced. The people that are watching us are probably know someone or have a friend that has experienced detention. Recently, the Office of the Inspector General also found violations to detention standards, quote unquote, causing outbreaks of COVID-19 in privately run concentration camps over times. These detention centers like La Palma in Eloy in Arizona have been found to have numerous violations. Some of these violations, the Inspector General made recommendations to correct the conditions, but we believe that there's no remedy. We will be in the same position even when they try to take correction. We know that they cannot restore the dignity and humanize our community members. We believe these facilities should be closed and replaced by offices that will help facilitate that migration instead of criminalizing it. And yes, so that's just part of the work that we do here in ADAC. And right now I want to pass it to Christian, who's one of our members, and to hear from him from firsthand experience on what's happening in these places. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Yeah, my name is Christian Vasquez. I'm 20 years old. I was brought here when I was 3 from Mexico. My family, especially my mom, who means a lot to me, has done a lot to help me build my growth. She's helped me emotionally, physically, to become the person that I am. As you've been hearing, yes, immigration has been a big issue with me, especially. Back in April 6th of 2019, I was put in detention for something that was supposed not to happen. I was just at the wrong place, the wrong time. And it was just a big misunderstanding. This situation really affected my life really, really deeply, and it's kind of hard for me to talk about it, but I want to say it as an inspiration to others, and just to start off to the fact that in detention, people will just treat you like you mean nothing. They crush you. They tell you things. They try to lose your motivation. I'm not gonna lie. I've teared up so many tears in such a bad back when I was in custody. Teared up a lot, missing my families, not being able to see them, and it just wasted a lot of time of my life and something that didn't happen. I spent there almost 2 years in detention, no way out, feeling like my life was over, thinking about everything that I've done for my family just to be thrown away for something that didn't happen. And the part that affected me the most is that, like I said, my mom means a lot to me. Before I got in detention, she told me that she had contracted a cancer, and that really put me down in a lot of ways. Not knowing and not being able to do something about it. I started working back in 2016, trying to make the money I needed to help my mom pay her rent and other expenses. When she told me that she had cancer, I enrolled to be a school coach for a junior high. That helped me a lot. I was bringing extra money in the house, trying to build up the money so I can pay for my mom's treatments. That didn't last until like in a month when I got into the issue with immigration. During that time, my mom got really emotionally destroyed, didn't know what to do, just wanted to help me, forgot about her treatment. And what it just meant so much to me, the fact that, the mother's love is something that you won't ever get back. So I've learned a lot of things, how to value my life, how to value my family, because at the end of the day, them are all going to be by your side. In immigration and detention, like I said, they treat you like crazy. They treat you like you don't mean anything. They push you around. I remember my first night, officers were just making fun of me. They were saying that everything that I did was for nothing, that it was just better to sign my deportation, that my family was just going to be over there one day with me, going to get deported as well. And that built a lot of like a lot of grudge in me, not like knowing how people really are. And I can't do anything about it. Every month, every week, every day, every minute that I spent in there was just bad talking, trying to get you down, like I said. And it's hard. They put you on lockdown. They lock you down 24 hours. Sometimes you just can't get out to even shower. They tell you, yeah, you only have 10 minutes to shower, 10 minutes to talk to your family on the phone, and that's it. And it was just tough not being able to see your family sometimes because there's not enough room, and it just messes you up. And the part that like I said, affected me the most is not being able to see my family at all. And it's just really difficult, having to be in a cell, 7x10 cell, and having no room, you and your bunkie, and just having to talk about what's gonna happen to you at the end of the day. Like I said, I did almost 2 years for something that didn't happen. They were saying that I was a danger to the community after everything that I showed and proved that I had done for the good for the community, and still saying that you're a danger and that you have no way out, and the only way out is just to get back to your country, a country that you had to flee from because you have nothing over there, and just looking for the better for your family as well. And it was just tough having to hear my family cry over the phone, like, we're gonna get you out, we need you over here, and just scaring you that you have no way out. You feel so claustrophobic. And there's a lot of things that I've seen in there, having to see so many people fleeing the country with wounds, cuts, pictures, trying to show a judge that has to decide what to do with their life, Like, why does the judge have to be the one to decide what you have to do at the end of the day and where you have to be? And that's something that I've never understood. And like I was saying, you just see people fleeing their country injured, showing proof that, I can't return to my country because my life is a threat. If I'm placed over there, I will die. And at the end of the day, the judge's like, well, look, it doesn't seem like it seems everything that you showed me is fake. They have shown their scars and their bodies. And the judge still says, you know what? I don't believe it. I think you'll be fine over there inside the deportation. Having to hear people saying, the officer opening your door, hey, get ready, you're leaving. The flight is ready for you. And the people in the room crying, not wanting to leave that cell. Like, how can you believe seeing a person not wanting to leave a cell? Like, that's how bad it is. And just to get deported, it's just sad. And not knowing whatever happened to that one person. I had a cellmate that, like, kind of the exact same story, had bullet wounds, cuts, missing finger, because he was tortured because his family, the people that did that to him, supposedly thought his family had money. And he showed all that to the judge, and the judge said, I don't think you'll risk your life anymore, so you'll be fine inside the deportation. Can't even sleep because he's wounded inside. He's crying. I can't believe I'm being deported. Like, I'm trying to do everything I can to stay here, and not knowing whatever happened to that one guy. I just think about it. I think about it to this day. Like, where is he? Is he good? I wish I can contact him, but no, I can't because he's not nowhere around, and just don't know what to think. And to this day, I can't believe that I'm out. Like, and I'm so grateful for everybody that stick to my side, help me every day. My family, I wish I could give them everything, for everything that have done to me. But having to do that much time for no reason, it still affects my head. It's still hard for me to sleep. It's still hard to me to eat. And same thing. When my first day out, I tried eating and I can't get used to the food. The food they give you in there is so unhealthy. It's so bad. They give you expired milk. Like, it just messes you up with your head. And it's hard to talk about it, but there's just so many things that I have to say that I just can't put it in words. But the fact that immigration is just bad, it's really difficult for people to try to get over everything that they have to get through.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for your powerful testimony. I know that we don't want you to revive trauma, but find the empowerment, right, to be able to share that lived experience and denounce that and humanity about it. So we want to thank you for giving us a chance to hear from you on this. Thank you so much. And I pass it back to Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to offer not just a moment to like sit with the power and also the vulnerability that Christian has shared with us. At 20 years old, to go through this level of dehumanization by a system, it's more than, as he shared, we're able to put into words. But I am grateful and I am grounded by the power of community organizing, of family and community building, that, as Christian shared, is what won his deportation to be stopped. And I want to ground us in that power because it wasn't a judge who created that change. It was community organizing. It was community leaders like Karina, like folks from ADAC, like folks from all over the country that day to day fight not just one deportation, but the system as a whole. And I want to just thank infinitely Christian for the power, really, of speaking truth and not allowing the ways in which the system criminalizes to define who he is. We see you, we hear you, we love you, and we're humbled to have you in this space with us. And I know it's also hard and difficult, especially for people who have had a loved one or who themselves have been impacted by the system. And so when I invite you to check with your body, because I know that that's also difficult and heavy for our own bodies. And I want to pass it to our folks from LUCHA, which I know are not unfamiliar to this story, specifically in spaces like Eloy and Palmas, right? That we know have this deep impact in our community members. So I'll pass it to you, Itzel.
Hi everyone. So I'm Itzel. I am a dreamer. I came to, well, me and my family, we came to the United States when I was only 2. So I've been living here for the past 15 years of my life in Arizona. I really don't know anything about Mexico. I closely relate to that one saying that's ni de aquí ni de allá, which translates to not from here, not from there. And it's true, like I personally, I feel like an outcast in both of my cultures, which really no one should feel like an outcast, especially in our culture. I just like legally, like the government tells me I shouldn't be here. Like this is not my place. I don't belong here, even though like I've been raised here. So it just really hurts. And then I don't know anything about my home country in Mexico. I was technically ripped apart from my culture. So it kind of like ICE and like this broken immigration system, it like rips apart. It steals our identity, our self-identity. And it's really frustrating for me to think that you place so much self-identity, or I place a lot of self-identity on what my status is or what the government thinks. And we almost kind of create like a lot of self syndrome, like imposter syndrome, sorry. But yeah, I know most like dreamers also can relate to like the saying like yeah. And apart from like stealing our like self-identity and like, which really no one should, like you're entitled to your own personality and like your own identity. But like growing up undocumented and with my family, we would always like live in fear, almost like we were chained because ICE like puts us in chains and like cages, of just being like free and never like always having to look over our shoulders, in case we're at risk or we lose everything in one day. I remember specifically my freshman year, a teacher told us like a fun fact that was like, you have a 50% of chance never returning back. And I was just fascinating. And then when I just deeply thought, I was like, that's way less for me and like my family and my community. Like that 50% like could probably like 20%. It's just so restful. Just trying to come back like to your own house. Like you never know, like, and no child should ever fear like never seeing their parents again, and just not knowing if their future like if their future is in like jeopardy because of ICE, because of this terrorist organization. And no parent should ever have to make that decision of like if they want to leave their child behind here in like the United States or going back to their home country and like taking them and risking their life because going back to their home country. And I just want to mention, like, we don't owe anything to the U.S. If the U.S. hasn't been intervening in our home country, we would have been fine off here. Like, the U.S. has like, played a lot in our home country. Like, they mess with us. So we really don't own anything to the U.S. More that the U.S. should really, like, give us the bare minimum of, like, letting us be free, letting us live here, without fear. And yeah, like, me just being like, I've only been living here for 15 years of my life. Like I was basically raised here. I have a lot of family members in Mexico that I would probably never see again. Like we'll never meet. And like specifically, I would never meet them because like obviously like how broken this immigration system is. It's just very hard to like, and it just pains me like a lot. I remember like when I was 3, my grandpa would like say like we would go to like my aunt's graduation and he promised me that back to the U.S. and come for my graduation. And like because his they treat us like a hunting sport. Well, they treat us like we're hunting. Can you guys? But I'm hearing that you guys are I'm getting cut off. Is that true?
We can hear you better now. I apologize. We're having, I think, connection issues, but we are holding space for you. And I think if you need to take a deep breath with us, we're also okay taking a deep breath with you. And it seems like we got a little bit blurry for a second. So I want to honor that you were sharing something deeply personal, and also that we are in Zoom and we are in virtual space. And so I think our internet connection may have disconnected for a little bit.
Okay.
Would you mind sharing a little bit of what you shared at the very end around your memory?
I'm not sure. Like, did I talk about like my grandpa, or did you guys get to hear that? Okay.
It was a little bit cut off. So if you want to share with us, it's okay.
I was just saying, like, my grandpa promised me to come to my graduation, but he can't because he's like in Mexico, and it's really not his fault. And I just don't know if like, who should I be angry about? And I think it's like no one should go through that. But yeah, I kind of need a break right now. Sorry.
No, I hear you, Ted. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I want to honor, that each of the leaders that are coming on today are in this space with their own lived experience, with their own grounding of why they show up and how they show up in this work. And so I'm sending you a deep hug, Itzel. And I honor that so many of us relate to the story of Christian, to the story of Itzel, to the stories that we hear every day. And I also want to honor and ground us that today, in all across the country, there are still thousands of people in immigration detention, in detention centers, all across the US. And that while we celebrate wins like the liberation of Christian, or the fact that we are able to convene and talk about these agencies together, that people need to be released, that we need to continue to organize, because ICE, even if under a new administration, will continue to do what it was built to do. And it was built to detain and deport our people. And we need to stop the collaboration with local law enforcement and the funding that allows them to operate in the way that they inflict this pain, harm, and trauma into our immigrant communities. And so I'm sending a deep hug to everybody who's joining us. And I want to move us along to hear also from the organizers who have some lessons learned, right? Who have done campaigns to get our people released, who have done campaigns to stop the Polimigra, so the collaboration with ICE and police. And I want to invite first Jose to share a little bit of what are some of the policies or laws or things that they've been fighting in Oklahoma that can show us the way on how to continue to do our work, even under a new administration. Because what we know is that the Biden administration, while he was not the president, he's the vice president. He was the vice president in 2008. He was the vice president in 2012. And even under that administration, there were millions of our community members who were deported. And so the fight continues. I saw a comment earlier, la lucha sigue. And so I think we can learn a lot from the organizers in the call today. And so I want to invite Jose to kick us off.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, I mean, so first I want to start kind of with like some of the things we've learned as organizers and organizing during different administrations, right? Whether they're, or even like different powers, whether it's like Democrats in power or Republicans in power, is the biggest thing I think I've learned is that basically both Republicans and Democrats are different phases of the same coin, right? So it's the same coin, but they show two different phases. Democrats are always here saying, you know, they're here for immigrant communities. They want to help. They want to create a pathway to citizenship. And they give us all these reasons, right? But they never act on it. And Republicans, well, they don't even say it. So, I mean, hey, but I mean, and so that's kind of what I've learned. They're both really kind of the same. So no matter who's in power, we still have to organize and we still have to hold those people accountable. And one other thing I've also learned is that no matter who's in power and who's in charge, our communities are always going to be terrorized until ICE is dismantled and abolished, right? We're never going to be fully free until ICE is really dismantled and abolished. And it doesn't even just go with ICE, it goes a lot with local law enforcement as well, because local law enforcement does also terrorize our communities. Which brings me to what some other things that we're working here in Oklahoma is so right now we have our campaign Release Them Now, which is basically to expose the conditions in ICE detention centers, but also local jails. Because everybody's seen that, you know, jails have some of the worst conditions anywhere in the world that you can be in. And that creates terror to our communities, that traumatizes our communities. So we're working to expose that and also to expose the collaborations that there is between local law enforcement and ICE. So I'm in Oklahoma City, but in Oklahoma City, there is no 287G, or Oklahoma County, there's no 287G agreements, right? So there's no official collaboration between the sheriff and ICE. But they just don't do it officially on paper, but they've been doing it for years unofficially. We've seen a lot of times where people are getting pulled over and detained, and ICE is right there to take them right away. We know here in our local county jail, they have two different ICE agents right there at all times. So no matter who gets arrested or pulled over, if they look like they're undocumented or if they look like they're, you know, a person of color, they'll be asked their citizenship. And if they can't prove that they're citizens, they'll be pushed to ICE, where they will face deportation. So that's one of the biggest things we're working on right now for our communities here in Oklahoma. In an Oklahoma County, there is no 287G agreement, but in other counties across Oklahoma, there is. So we're also working to end those.
Thank you so much, Jose. And I know that we're going to be dropping links so that you can learn. So if you're joining us from Oklahoma, or if you're joining us from nearby vicinity areas or each of these organizations, each of our affiliates, that you can join us. And I want to pass it to Karina, because I think that after Christian's testimony, we know that there was a lot of power that was built to actually get Christian released, but even some of the lessons learned around how power is being built in Arizona and how we can thank organizers, right, in Arizona for even helping us push through a lot of the wins.
Yes, Cynthia, it's definitely a lot of work. I believe one of the lessons that we learn is that no matter what administration we have, our community will always be under attack as long as there's racism and white supremacies are institutionalized. as long as our government is willing to to make money off of people of color. I do believe that our work won't be done until we defund, like you mentioned before, and eventually abolish ICE and CBP and institutions like the police that are working. Itzel was talking about how the system is broken. And the reality is that, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, to break down communities of color, to oppress communities of color. So we can get citizenship, but as long as police keeps killing Black and brown folks, we cannot be safe in our communities. And that's the reality of it. I think that we invite people to join in the fight and to, get informed and empowered. I think that's the first step, raising your voice so that others can hear our realities that they do not believe and join us in changing those realities. And I think that's part of the fight here. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you for that very direct connection, right? As long as agencies have different ways to reinvent themselves, our communities will continue to be at risk. And that's why we talk about defunding ICE, CBP, and the police, because we know just this week we are back experiencing the violence that policing systems have in this country. And so I want to invite Amelia, which I think we haven't gotten to hear from in a little bit during this space. And I know that Amelia has a lot of lessons and power to share with us.
Thank you, Cynthia. One of the things that we're really doing this year is changing narratives, pushing back on narratives that have really just been super harmful for our communities. Dismantling the things that people say about our immigrant community. Like you heard Itzel say, she can't see her family. She doesn't know if she'll ever get to see her family. And that's really something, especially in a time of a pandemic, that nobody should have to go through, like ever, but especially right now. Kids living in fear constantly, families living in fear, and sometimes that fear is rooted in not knowing what your rights are, not knowing how these systems that, like Karina said, are designed to break people of color, Black and brown bodies. When people think of immigrants, we don't think of the fact that our border with Canada is not militarized the way that our southern border is between the United States and Mexico. And so why are we targeting this group of people? Why are we denying these people their humanity? It's ugly. And so one of the ways we're going to combat that here at LUCHA is we're going to be educating. We want to dismantle these thoughts. We want to meet people where they are and show them where their power is, and the power is in our communities. We showed up and we showed out during these elections, right? These politicians that are in office would not have gotten there if it weren't for people like Itzel and Christian and Karina and everybody else on this call showing up and mobilizing. We got people to the polls. We had people who were undocumented, people who couldn't vote. Itzel is 17 years old, and yet she was working so hard during the campaign to make sure people who had the privilege to vote were out there voting. And we changed the landscape here in Arizona, and it was so, so beautiful. And then also recognizing that no matter who's in office, no matter what their party, no matter how nice they may seem, we need to hold them accountable. They work for us, not the other way around. And just like they got elected, they cannot get elected if they do not show up for our communities. Putting that power back into our people and just really changing the narratives, educating, You cannot take away what someone learns and what someone knows. And so I actually want to share a quote with y'all that I think is super powerful and super meaningful. And it's actually from Cesar Chavez. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. You cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore. And that's what we need to like show in our community, is that we are not afraid. We are powerful, and we are not going to live in the shadows anymore under this oppressive system that wants us to be en las sombras. We're not going to live there anymore, and we're going to educate ourselves. We're going to empower our community. We're going to put the power back in the hands of where it belongs, because these politicians are temporary. Like, they're not going to be there forever. But you know who is going to be there forever? People like Itzel, people like Karina, people like Christian, people like Jackie, people like Cynthia, people like y'all that are on this call today, people that are watching this right now on Facebook. We're forever. Our communities are forever, and our communities are powerful. And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to put that power back in our communities, and we're going to show them what we're doing. Here in Arizona, we've managed to get together because, as a lot of people know, our undocumented community is being left out of relief. We expect them to do the jobs that people in this country don't want to do, and yet they can't even get relief when there's so much loss. So here in Arizona, we've gotten together in the community, and we've been able to provide relief for some of our undocumented community. We've been able to give out about a little over $100,000 in relief, just to try to minimize the stress during this time. And so, like I said, we're really going to empower our people this year. We're going to just let them know that the power is in your hands. Y'all are not just a part of the movement. Y'all are the movement. Y'all are making things happen. And so it's time for us to sit in that power. It's time for us to take that and really take it to where it needs to go and apply the pressure where it needs to go. Because if we let these politicians get comfortable, if we get comfortable as a community, they're going to keep doing the same thing that they do. And it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter what their party is. And it doesn't matter how many times they smile at us and tell us that, oh, we love you. You're going to show us with action. You're going to show up for our people. You're going to make sure we're not living in fear. And you're going to make sure that we're not traumatizing yet another generation to have to heal from that. And that's what we're doing here in Arizona.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tamilia. Thank you. I appreciate all the words that you have shared. I want to also thank Christian, who just exited our Zoom, because they're also getting back to work, and they're also getting back to the community. And it's important, right, that we ground ourselves with what is the short-term wins and also what is the long-term strategy. I think it's important that we remember every time that funding is going to these agencies, that there is people behind every conversation. Every time we hear about numbers or we hear narratives that are dehumanizing, there are people behind each of those stories. And it is critical that we remain disciplined in our commitment to liberation, not just for ourselves, but for our community at large. If COVID-19 taught us anything, is that there could be a virus, there could be sickness in a completely different place of the world, and it can impact us because we are a community that has impact in a global aspect. It says shared the responsibility from the US on destabilizing other countries and then shutting its doors when those communities are showing up through forced migration. It said also shared that some of us are stuck between a line that divides the families and the communities that we want to be part of. And so I want to ground us in that as we continue this conversation. And I want to get us moving because I think it's important that we share that, as Chloe shared earlier on the call, Eyes on Ice, it's an accountability and truth forum where we're inviting community to talk about what is the realities of these agencies, the impact. But we also invited DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to the final forum of Eyes on Ice. We haven't heard yet if he's attending or if he's joining us. But I want to ask each of one of our community leaders today, what would they ask or what would they demand? What would they say to Secretary Mayorkas if they were able to be face to face with him? And I want to pass it first to Karina to share with us. What would you say, friend?
How did you know I was anxious to give you that answer, Cynthia? I think I would ask him if he is ready to get himself out of a job. I want to know if he understands that that's what's needed for a community, for him to put that agency, to close that agency, to put him out of a job, you know, and to actually create an office that's going to welcome immigrants, that's going to give support to those people that are coming here for the first time, that don't have any other type of support. What does it look like for him, right? To create an agency, an office that is going to support immigrants from healthcare, culturally, that is going to, you know, provide resources for immigrants instead of criminalizing migration. I think that he took on this job, he needs to realize that that's what our community needs. And we don't need any more of these enforcement if we have a way for people to come here legally, that is expedite, that is a way where it's that is not restrictive, right? And again, that conversation about criminalization has to end. I don't think that immigrants should be treated any differently from people who are born here, right? We all make mistakes. We all are expecting to be held accountable, and not just regular citizens, but also immigrants, and also our elected officials and those institutions that are in place to serve the communities. So I want to ask him if he really understands that our community needs him to work on putting himself out of a job, and if he's ready for that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. And I love that you said, "Are you ready to be out of a job?" And that's a large ask because, you know, ICE is only one agency within the landscape of DHS. And so there's going to be a richer conversation about what that means. And, you know, I also hear you around how do we disconnect the criminalization of immigrants or our response to immigration as something that we must stop, but rather welcome. I think that it's important. And I know that our folks from DAOK are ready also to respond to that question. So I want to invite Jose or Jackie, you know, what do you think or what would you say? And also, you know, how do you feel about him not responding yet or us not confirming his attendance?
Okay, yeah, I'll go. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised they haven't responded, right? Because that's usually they ignore community. So not surprised at all. But one of the things I would like really just try to ask is, what's the future for the budget, right? Because we see that ICE keeps getting more and more money. We don't really see any cuts in ICE or Homeland Security. So really the main focus would be is like, why not? Why are you not defunding ICE, CBP, and everything else that they can to really end the terrorizing of our communities? But Jackie, if you want to know.
Yeah, so definitely I agree with you, Jose. It's not a surprise that they haven't responded and will probably not respond because they like to ignore our community, honestly. And so, it makes it really difficult when our community is trying to reach out to these people and inviting them to what our community really has to say, and we're just ignored. So that kind of just obviously is going to add to the distaste that we have for our politicians when they won't even give us the time of day. So if I were to talk to Mayorkas, I would ask him, like, what if this was you? What if this was your family? What if it was your siblings who were being separated from their parents? What if this was you? And I feel like a lot of the times, as easy as it is to ask people that, it's very difficult for them to really even comprehend what it means for them to be separated from family, to be separated from your friends, to be separated from a country that you've grown up in, even though you weren't born here. This is where you live, this is your home. And for someone to just rip you apart from that and put you into this place where you're a foreigner, it's so dehumanizing. And so yeah, I would ask him, what if it was you? What if it was your family? Which I'm sure he would probably have a pretty hard time answering.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Jose. And also the grounding that Ali Mayorkas, it's an immigrant. And so the question, I feel, is very fitting and also challenging to ensure that when folks are able to go through a process of adjustment or are able to have access, right, to protection, permanent protection specifically, that they acknowledge that that is not the access that all of our communities have. And I know, Tamilia, I would love to hear your response to this. And then we're going to move to Chloe to tell us a little bit more about May 3rd and what can we expect from the rest of the accountability forums that are coming up before we move into our closing. So, Tamilia, if you're there. All right, I see you.
I'm here. I think our previous speakers summed it up, but I think my hugest question would be, how dare you? How dare we continue to stand on the backs of people and expect them to be doormats in this country? How dare you ignore the people you're here to serve? How dare you let people continue to be traumatized? Throughout the news, we hear all the time that this is not who America is, but this is exactly who America is. This is exactly what it has continued to show itself time and time again. We take advantage of people. We expect them to show up in a pandemic and do the work that nobody wants to do. We deny them relief. We deny them a life that every human deserves. And that's a life without fear. That's a life without trauma. That's a life where you're not trying to figure out how to feed your kids, whether or not you're going to see your kids, whether or not our kids are going to come home to themselves and that's it. How dare you not listen to the cries of our community? How dare you ignore us? Oppression and abuse thrives in silence. It thrives in ignorance, and it thrives in ignoring people. And I agree with Karina. I agree with Jackie and Jose. Are you ready to lose your job? Are you ready to be replaced? Because if you're not going to listen to the people, then what are you there for? There's no reason. And so if I was to talk to Mayorkas, that's exactly what I would say to him, is how dare you ignore the people you're meant to serve.
Thank you so much. And powerful words. Oppression thrives in silence. I think that that is a grounding for our folks who are here with us on the Zoom, but also who may be listening and just really taking all of this in. I think it's powerful that we're able to name the things that we want. For a long time, we talk about the things we don't want. Today, we're saying we want you to be ready to completely abolish ICE and to make sure that our people get the respect and the humanity and the dignity that they deserve. And I want to pass it to Chloe because I know Chloe has some updates to share. What can we expect from Eyes on Eyes as it keeps moving and the forums that are coming up, and about May 3rd, which I know that was our last response.
Yeah, so thank you so much to Tamilia and to everybody else who just shared what they would say directly to Secretary Mayorkas if they were face-to-face with him. And we have put that invitation out there, right? So again, we're going to continue hosting truth and accountability forums until the end of the 100-day period, where people are going to be sharing, just like you heard today, about the realities of ICE enforcement in their communities. We know that ICE didn't go away when Joe Biden entered office. Right? Far from it. And so the same energy that we saw being out in the streets, the outrage about, people in cages, we need to maintain that same outrage now when 14,000 people are still in cages in ICE detention, when the Biden administration thinks that it's okay to use the same policing system that murdered George Floyd and continues to murder people every day in this country as the metric for whether somebody should be deported or not. Right? So we need to continue to raise our voices. And that's why on the 21st, we're going to have a virtual day of action. We're asking you to join from wherever you are, whether it's, Oklahoma, whether it's Florida, wherever you are, to join in the virtual day of action on the 21st and tweet at Alejandro Mayorkas to let him know what you think about the fact that 14,000 people are still in detention, that deportation flights continue to take off, disproportionately targeting Black migrants, right? And then we are asking you to join us for the forum on May 3rd, where we expect to see Secretary Mayorkas there as well in order to be able to hear from community members. So thank you so much, Cynthia. And please be on the lookout, for an email from us as well about the virtual day of action. And please also sign the petition with the demands that Eyes on ICE is raising, the 6 demands to shrink, overhaul, and dismantle ICE enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chloe, and thank you for everyone. I know we're sharing a lot of actions and next steps you can take. And I know that we heard from Karina, Jose, Jackie, Tamilion. What do we want to tell, right? The current administration, specifically Secretary Mayorkas. I want to share just briefly what are some of the demands that we already have at United We Dream under our Undeniable campaign. And all of this tied together, right, around the accountability process. We're demanding citizenship for the over 11 million undocumented immigrants with the understanding that it's not tradable for more enforcement money. That means no more funding for ICE and CBP. We're actually demanding the defunding of ICE, CBP, and the police, including the collaboration that they have together to ensure that it ends and it stops from criminalizing our people. We're demanding immediate protections for people who have already DACA, TPS, and who we know they need to reinstate protection, because even as we sit here today, we're still waiting on guidance from DHS around what fortifying DACA really means. We also are demanding a moratorium. And I know that we can say the Biden issue a moratorium. And as Chloe shared earlier on the call, even with that moratorium, not being successful, he still has the power and the tools necessary to stop the deportation. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge that he has the tools and the resources to stop all deportations and release people from detention. We're demanding inclusive and broad COVID-19 relief that doesn't just glorify us as essential workers, but meets that with action and meets that with everybody, regardless of what current job they hold. It needs to be inclusive of people, regardless of immigration status. And we want to close with making sure that Joe Biden makes good on its promise to stop deportations and to listen to community that needs immediate relief. And so you're seeing on your screen our undeniable texting. I know Chloe shared a lot of the actions that we're going to be taking. We are really excited to have built this community space together. And I want to just invite our folks who joined us today from Oklahoma, from Arizona, and share with you all what are some next steps. If you want to engage locally, what are some of the things that folks from ADAC are doing? I know that Karina shared a little bit about taking action. And so I want to hear from you, Karina. What are some of the next steps that we can expect from y'all?
Yes, Cynthia. We'll be having, as part of this campaign locally, an action on April 19th at 2 p.m. outside of La Palma Detention Center, this detention center that I talked about, having those many violations under COVID, putting the life of our people at risk. So we're going to be there and demand that that facility is closed, that it's not just like looking for correction to these violations. We know that is not enough because it's rooted in racism, it's rooted in white supremacy, and there's no reason for people to be there. So if people want to join us, they can send us a message through our social medias and find us. There's like our information available there, and if they can't, we want them to consider writing a letter and sending it to us so that we can take it to the detention center and mail it to those people who are in there, so they know that they're not alone. We want them to make sure, like people like Christian, give them some words of encouragement, knowing that you're going to show up for them, or that you're going to make a phone call for them, or that you have them in your prayers, whatever it is. Like, we want them to know they're not alone. They have a community that got their back. We are fighting really hard in order to make sure that place is closed for good, so that they can be with their families, and we won't stop until that goal is accomplished. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Karina, and I would love to hear from LUCHA. I know that there's a lot of collaboration happening, but I would love to hear what are the next steps for LUCHA, Amelia.
And like I said, we're really focusing on educating people. And so definitely following us on social media and following our sister organization, Arizona Center for Empowerment, to really learn how harmful these narratives are and what the truths are. Knowledge is power, and once we have knowledge, it can't be taken away from us. We will have a lot of events going out, not just during this time, but also throughout the year. That's going to continue to break down the narratives of food in our communities, good immigrant versus bad immigrant, which is super harmful to our community. So many different levels, even being queer in our community, like what does that look like? How does that play out? And how do those narratives really impact us? And so if you follow us on our social media, you'll be kept up to date. You can also become a member, because our organization is nothing without our members. Our members are what drive us. We get our ideas from our members and what needs to happen from our members. So joining us and becoming a member and, you know, getting involved. And I think I shared the link for that. Definitely hit us up and get in contact with our organizers. They're super dope. And just different aspects of the organization to really get involved and be hands-on, because like you saw, Itzel is powerful. And she's only 17, yo. Like, that's so dope. Like, that is so dope. And she shows up in ways that she doesn't have to, but she does. And so it's because of members like Itzel that we are here to be able to do our work. So we get our ideas and what needs to happen from those that are closest to the issues, because that's where the power lies.
Thank you so much. And you know, sending a lot of love to Itzel. I know how much it takes to show up, especially such a young age, but we mean it when we say that young people are driving the work and they're driving the new vision. So with that, I think is a perfect bridge into hearing from Jackie or from Jose, like what is next for Dream Action Oklahoma?
So right now we're still doing, like I said, mentioned before, the Release Them Now campaign. The link is on the screen, right? So if anybody wants to go and check it out and sign up for updates, you'll be getting updates on what's the next steps. So we are planning some future things where people can join us and be part of the campaign. So definitely go sign up there. And then also just follow us on our social medias, of course, Facebook, Instagram, Dream Action Oklahoma. And then we also have a Dream Action _Tulsa for the Tulsa site. But yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Jose. And I wanna, before I close this off, I wanna see if any folks who are joining us on the Zoom or even on the streams, if there are any questions before I get us to our closing. I know we already been here for almost an hour and a half, and I also want to honor that we have amazing organizers, community leaders in the space. And so I want to make sure that if we had any final questions, we can answer them. But if not, I want to, again, reiterate the need for each of one of those folks who join us today, that they've shared and they've expressed that they need your support. They need you to show up, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult, especially when you're getting a lot of pushback, because we know that that is where our people are fighting the hardest. We know that under current administration, there's going to be a lot of pushback of, is it early enough to push the Biden administration? Is it too soon? What we know is that it's hundreds of thousands of people have been deported already. What we know is that immigration enforcement is disproportionately deporting Black immigrants at a larger rate. And what we know is that today, in the streets and all across the country, we are seeing that policing systems are deadly, especially for Black people. And so I want to re-invite you and all of us to recommit to this fight. Because what we experienced and what we lived, not just through 2020, over decades, is the tools of white supremacy. And our people are not safe unless we have the community resources that we need. And so we must stay firm in our commitment to defund hate, defund ICE and CBP and the police, and abolish these agencies that are literally killing our people. And so I invite you, as we finish this community space, to sit with the power of folks like Christian and Itzel, or sit with the learnings from Dream Action Oklahoma, ADAC, LUCHA, and our partners like Mi Gente and us here at United We Dream, on how we continue to push Secretary Mayorkas, President Biden, to deliver on the promise of protection for our people without harmful trade-offs for enforcement. And I want your commitment to continue to provide support and continue to engage in the local fights, because we know throughout the states, throughout the country, we have seen legislation that is harmful to communities of color, because we're building long-term power, and state legislation is pushing to stop that power from happening. And so as we close, I'm going to invite, with this spontaneous question, each and one of the folks who joined us, and if we can put everyone on the screen, to share what keeps you grounded. What do you do to take care of yourself? How do you stay focused? Because I know building this space together, it's heavy. It's heavy on us. It's heavy on our people. And we don't do this work because it feels good all the time. There are times where it's difficult. And those are the times where our people need us the most. And I know that we are always on the go. And so it's important to remind ourselves what we want for our communities. And so I want to invite us, Amelia, if you can start us off with, like, how do you take care of yourself, or how do you keep grounded?
So I'm gonna be so nerdy, but like I love laminating things. I don't know why, but at the end of a long day, laminating something brings me so much joy, especially when it's one of my kids' drawings. But I love laminating things because it's just a weird little thing I have. But even aside from that, is hearing the people that take their power and the people who get empowered by this work and see themselves as they should be seen, which is powerful, which is loved, which is a human. Seeing people like Itzel, like Christian, not stay in the shadows anymore, to tell their stories. And as hard as it is, because it is hard to share these stories, to see their light and how that affects others. And I think that's one of the things that makes me continuously be able to keep doing this, is seeing people see themselves, because that's so powerful and that's so important.
Thank you, Amelia. And I'm going to pass it to Jackie. I'm going to zigzag so I make sure I get everyone.
Thank you, Cynthia. So I think probably the way that I ground myself is honestly just really trying to spend time with friends and family when I can. They're always the ones who are here for me to support me, even when I don't believe in myself and I get imposter syndrome and I don't feel like I deserve to be in the space that I am. But, you know, obviously, if it wasn't for my parents and all of their hard work and all of their effort and all of their support, you know, I wouldn't have the courage to, you know, speak out and, you know, and empower other people and other immigrant community, you know, to stand up for themselves, to see that they are an extremely valuable member of this community, whether they have legal status or not. So yeah, my friends and my family are the ones who ground me the most. And then other than that, just playing with my dog when I have free time.
Thank you. We love the puppies. Itzel?
Well, thank you, Cynthia. But something that keeps me going is that Tammy was telling me that maybe like me sharing and opening up can like inspire someone else to also open up, because among our community, we tend to be very closed and not tell our story because of fear. So I just hope that I get to inspire someone else. And that's just what keeps me going too. And also like my great friends, my two best friends, and my parents, they're great too.
Thank you, Itzel. Friends, keep us going. And I love the inspiration you brought us today and the grounding. Jose, I'm not gonna judge, but I see Netflix in the back. Is that Is that what grounds you?
Maybe that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I watch Netflix, but no, I think what keeps me grounded is always remembering why I'm doing the work. Kind of always remember the reason, which is my family and my community, right? But also like realizing that and like taking into account and like fully admitting that mental health is really important. And always trying to like look at my mental health and like make sure I'm in a good place. And generally things that I do like just to make sure that I am is just taking a day off, doing some hobbies, watching some Netflix. But also I love art, so I love to paint and draw. So you know, that's it.
Thank you, friend. And last but not least, I know Karina is ready.
Yes, I think there's a few things that keep me grounded actually. Every time people go to the office and they're like, I don't think I can like qualify for that guy, like I don't think that I can make it, like I don't have enough evidence, and we encourage them because we tell them that we went through that. Like I'm a DACA recipient, like I had to look through my paperwork, and I know how frustrating it is. And seeing people that are about to give up and telling them, hey, I did it, so you can too, it's inspiring. And after a long day in the office, when people trust you with their stories in the phone or at the office, I think when I come home, my friends hold me, my children hold me, my grandsons hold me. I'm a young DACA grandma. I became a grandma waiting for dream acts and liberation for a community. But being that ancestor that my grandkids want me to be, like that they deserve, being that ancestor that fights against injustice, and for liberation and for people, is what keeps me grounded and what keeps me really focused on. This might be a really long fight and sometimes a really tiring, but it's a fight worth fighting. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much. And I want to close us off with the power that we're more than our status. We are more than what the system pins us out to be. We are full people with hobbies, with love, with community, and we deserve to be seen as such. And so you who joined us on Zoom, you who share this link, you who's seen us in this space tonight, you are part of our community. You are part of our people. You can too be that change maker in your community. And so as we close, I invite y'all to continue to share this stream, to continue to invite community. I know COVID puts a lot of restrictions on how we're able to meet, but we have literally coast to coast organizers coming together, fighting to abolish ICE. And abolishing ICE is not just a slogan or a hashtag, it's the actual groundwork to get us there, to defund the agency, to stop deportations, so that folks like Christian don't have to experience at 18 years old, at 19 years old, at 20 years old, or at 40 or 50, 60 years old, what the system is built to do. And so I want to thank our partners for Mi Gente. I want to thank our Dream Action Oklahoma affiliate, ADAC, LUCHA, who are always down to be at the forefront of the fight. And I want to thank every single person who joined us on the Zoom. I know Zoom fatigue is real, y'all, but we're choosing to be in this space. And we're choosing to show up because we know this is the moment. And we're in a moment of opportunity. And I saw a comment, I believe, from Lida, said it's not too early. It's actually late, but we will be on time when it comes to get our people the protection that they need. And we're going to create that protection because we know community safety is not tied to enforcement. It's tied to one another. We keep each other safe. We call on our friends, on our people when we find ourselves in need. through COVID-19. We got us through COVID. And those who didn't make it are guiding us to continue this fight. And it's important that we reground ourselves with that power. And so I want to honor all the ancestors, as Karina shared, that has brought us here, and the power that we're building to be the next generation. Because this fight, it's a long-term fight, but it's long overdue. So thank you, Karina. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Itzel. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Tamilia. Thank you to our digital teams from Mi Gente and United We Dream on the back end supporting. It's been a pleasure and always grateful for all your power. Thank you and have a great night.